Hey everybody, David here with David R. Becker with BeckerArt. And we're here today to do some painting, right? We're going to do some Magnolia blossoms. And we're doing it on Wednesday night only because tomorrow night I'm up in Lake Geneva where I'll be doing a live demonstration. And actually that demonstration is going to be at the Geneva Lakes Art Foundation. And that's going to be like at 7 o'clock if you're around the area in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And it will be, though, it's going to be acrylic wash, and we're going to be doing that tomorrow night. Unfortunately, they had to take a place of somebody. Otherwise, normally I wouldn't schedule something like that on a Thursday night, but we're here, and so tonight, instead of usually on Thursdays, what happens is my class is the guinea pigs, and I do one before. So now we're the guinea pigs. So for tomorrow's class, so I still have my class tomorrow, and I will be doing this again tomorrow with my class. But so we'll be doing it better probably tomorrow. So you guys are the guinea pigs tonight. And so, hey, Dave. And so here we go. For those of you that didn't realize it was going to be a Thursday, well, it's a day early, and you can just watch it again tomorrow, anyways, if you like. You just won't be able to ask questions, I guess. But you can ask questions afterwards, anyways, right? So today's is not a beer. Today's a hard cider. Star Cut Ciders, Mosa, and I think I may have already had this one, but that's the only thing I had. I didn't find anything. Again, it was Wednesday, and everything happened early this week. So let's see what this cider tastes like. It's a Mosa cider, so pretty much like a apple and orange juice. Where does it come from, actually? It comes from Michigan. So from Elk Rapids, Michigan. So we'll see what it's like. Cheers, everybody. Look at that. That's like a mimosa. Mimosa cider. Oh, wow. That's like a pop. So very sweet. If you like sweet, I'm going to give it for a cider. It's a pretty good cider. I'm going to say 10 for this. It's really good. It's, again, it's a cider. It's not a beer. Though it is 4%, 4.5% alcohol. So it still gives you a kick. All right, so we're going to be doing, we kind of done not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, we did, I was always about the background being soft edged. And so that's what we're going to try to do here too. We're going to try to do soft edges in the background. And again, it's just kind of like a repeat, but it's good to repeat things so that, you really get the feeling of working wet into wet and getting those soft edges. It's something you want to learn how to do. And this is, because it's spring, that's a good thing. And let's go to our website first to show you. So my website is BeckerArt.net, and that's where you find out everything that happens with me. And so if you when this is happening, and like if you looked, though in the newsletter in the one part I did have the 27th, I forgot to change it, but here hopefully people will look at my website, and that's where you get the image so that you can use it and download it and all that kind of things. And then our supplies, of course, are always my Holbein watercolors and my BeckerArt brushes. And I'm not using masking fluid, but I'm going to show you how to use tape. Soft tape by Holbein, which is not listed here, but we're going to be using soft tape, my brushes, and Legion papers. And so let's go on to our value study. And this is really important, again, because why? Like I said in my newsletter, to get those aha moments, you have to learn that the planning of a watercolor is just as important as painting. Because once you get to learn how to paint, hey Patty from Buffalo, New York, where the Hyatt shop was, I went last year. So for the value study, let me just get my arrow here. So it's very important to make your value study, and like for students, usually I have them do pencil studies or turn it black and white like I do. And this one I even put a filter on it just to show you that all this back here, all these blues and lights and stuff, this is basically middle tone, right? But I think of it as darker than the flowers, and so I took it down a little bit. And so even though it is blue and it's green and it's dark and it's a little bit of light, but it's middle tone, it's darker than the flower. And so by doing this, it shows me that, like I always say to all my students, is that middle tones can go either direction. They can either go to the dark part of your composition or the light part. And I chose to make this the dark part. All the way around here, all the way around this flower will be darker than the flower. Doesn't mean it has to be this dark. It doesn't have to be black. It just has to be darker than the flower. So then the flower itself, the blossom I should say, the blossom the Magnolia blossom is going to be the lightest part, and then there's only two parts right here in the background. There's this blossom back here happens to be the secondary interest, and so that'll also be light, but it's going to be a background, so we're going to try to keep that soft edge, where this one will be hard edged. And so I want to do a really beautiful wet into wet blurry wash in the background, like we've learned how to do. This is just repeating it and trying to always do things over and over again to learn how to do it. So we're going to be doing that soft edged, and then I have to mask this out. But this time, instead of masking with masking fluid, I use soft tape. Holbein makes a tape called soft tape, and it's really thin tape that you can see through, and I can just use a razor blade or a razor knife, and I can cut it and then peel it off. And I'm going to see if I can't peel it with a hairdryer to release it from the paper, because Stonehenge happens to be a paper that's very very soft, and so a lot of times if you're putting masking fluid, like I did the other day, last Sunday, when I had put masking fluid down, when I lifted it up, or last week I should say, on Thursday when we did the fish, a lot of it came up. A lot of the paper came up because I didn't heat it when I came out, and also I put too much masking fluid down, or the way I took it out was wet. And so we're going to try something a little different here this week. Alright, so let's go to our tabletop, and I have nothing to show you because I didn't do it yet this week. I didn't do it in class, but I can show you that this is the soft tape. This is, you can get it like at most art shops, Blick's, Vermont Art Supply, Jerry's Artorama. You just ask for soft tape, Holbein soft tape, and it's very thin tape, and it's not masking tape. It's more like plasticky, and it's not so sticky, so it releases itself a little bit better. And also, what I do is when I put this down, I took the this is almost like 1.25 inches, and so when I put it down, what I did is I put it. Hard to start with gloves. So what I did is I first take it and I put it on the towel to get rid of some of the stickiness to it, because I don't want it really sticky. So I want it a little bit not as sticky as it is, and it really isn't as sticky as most other tapes. So I put it down, and actually on this I didn't do that, but I would suggest that you do put it onto your pants or onto a towel, and then just put it down. And as you can see through it. You can see the line through it. It's that thin, and it's kind of a plasticky kind of tape, and then I just cut around that, and that will keep my light. Now I didn't do it in here because I that's enough for me to go to against, and again I don't have to fill this whole area because I don't have to go over that part. I'm just making it so that the edges of this flower stay. I don't have to worry about them. I can just go really quickly with that, which we'll do right now, because we're going to do our light colors first. And this is one time where I'm not going to be putting the color into the flower first, or the blossom first, which I should be, but because I put the tape down, I can't. So I'll do it later, and it'll still be fine. It's just that this time there's times when you can't do the wet into wet, or you're doing your lights first in my 3-step process. Remember my 3-step process? Hey, Karen. I judged the Michigan Watercolor Society Association. Yep, that was that was this year. It was definitely. Cheers, guys. Cheers. Excuse me. Okay, here we go. So what I do is I'm going to do the background. Remember, soft edge, wet into wet. Now, there is a part right here that is my lightest light, so I might as well start in this area, go around the whole area right here. Excuse me. Choked on this good drink. So down through here, I'm going to go through, and I'm going to go around these, and I don't have to be too careful with that. I can always make that a soft edge. And so I'm going to go right over the tape. Nice thing about this soft tape, too, is that it repels the water, and it doesn't slip underneath there, like sometimes masking fluid does. It's a really good tape. And so I'm going to make this now. I'm going to make it the light blue of the sky, but again, I want it darker than my foreground, my flowers. And anything is darker than white, right? So you'll be doing fine. So just think of that. Think of it that way. You'll be doing fine no matter what, because it's going to be darker. And then I do want some green, so I'm going to take some cornicum gold, put some green in there, some purple, makes it a little bit, dulls it down a little bit, makes it brown basically. A little bit orange. So I'm mixing it a little bit together here just to kind of get a feel of what I have. and that kind of, and also the pink. So I'm gonna use some pinkish color, so maybe a little opera. I'm gonna use that because right now this is all wet, right? And so I can make my lights first. So just go in here, do our lights. And again, this is soft edged because it's all wet. You notice I didn't wet it over here because by the time I get there, it's gonna be dry. So I'm gonna wet as I go along. I'm gonna go wet it as I go along. Let's make sure I don't choke myself again here. Okay, so some little red, little warmth in there for the actual flower itself. A little pink. And I can go beyond the light part because I can take the darker part, make it thicker, and then this branch that goes through here, I can make that hard edge so it looks like it's in the front. And so I'm not going to worry about that branch right now. So then I'm going to go in here with darker colors. And thicker if I want to make it so that it looks like it's going to have to set the shape of this blossom right there. And it's a bud, kind of like a bud right there. That's like a bud of the blossom that's coming up. And there's a little bit of lime green in there too. So what you do for that is yellow. So here's my yellow and green. I use a light blue and a light yellow. And I'll just do a little bit of light. Notice there's a little bit of light right here. So I'm just putting that all on first. Light to dark, remember, light to dark. And these branches I can do, but first put on your light part. And make it thick to identify shapes. We're identifying shapes in here, but they're all soft edged. So I've got to keep it wet, but keep it thick with paint because the paint, the thicker it is, the more it's not going to bleed. It's not going to bleed when it's thick. See, I can go right around this. And then that really bright blue, the background blue, the sky blue, that I want to make sure that's kind of really bright. And so I'm just going to make it nice and thick. And I'll put it nice and thick there. And this is, again, this is practice. This is just practice makes perfect, right? And so practice again and making your background soft edged. This is like a repeat class kind of thing. So we want to keep on doing it because you never don't do this. You always work wet into wet when you want soft edges, right? And so we're going to do a lot of this repeating the next couple of times we paint because I want you to keep on doing the same things over and over until they become just natural. Like you don't think about how you're painting. Like I said in my haha moment newsletter this week, is that you want to get to a point where you're not thinking about how you're painting, you're just painting. And that will be a great aha moment where you're going, oh, I can just paint. I can just have fun. You know, I'm looking at it and I just go down here and I'm just painting away. I'm not thinking about how much water to use, how much pigment. That's automatic to me. You know, I don't really think about those things. I do try to tell you that I'm doing that, but basically it's hard for me. A lot of times I try to show people how to do the thing wrong, like how to not use too much water, and I just can't do that because I've just learned so well how to not do the wrong thing. You know, because the more you do, the more you learn on how to do it right. Now these plants are going to be, or these buds right here are darker, so I'm just going to put the blue sky behind it, right over it. And see how it's all soft edged? It's all blurry. That's what we want you to learn. I mean, it's something I really want you to pick up because you don't need it all the time. But for a thing like this, it just makes this flower look so much nicer if you have this hard edged and that soft edged. It brings it forward. It makes it look like you really know what you're doing. It's just wonderful being able to do wet into wet and controlling the watercolor. And you get some beautiful washes, some beautiful watercolor washes by doing that. Now this, again, is the tree branch. And so I'm just going to go in here, wet this, and that'll be darker later. And so I can, again, put blue for the sky through there, like you can see through that. And this is a hard edge, and I didn't wet it, so I can do that without having to put masking fluid on there. And it is pretty dark. It looks like it's a dark green. Somebody asked, Patty asked why I'm wearing gloves. I get that question a lot, but I started working with gloves just because I got used to it, and I don't get my hands dirty, and also I like using black gloves because then it contrasts the the camera can focus on something, because everything's light, then my camera has a hard time focusing on things, and so this helps to focus the attention on the painting, and also regulates the lighting that I have. I used to wear the blue ones, but I think the blue ones were kind of, and also the white ones, the light ones, and it didn't give you the contrast. So now you can see, it like shows you, it shows where my hands are, what my brush is doing, and it kind of contrasts the look. And so now I got really used to it, and I feel kind of like not right when I don't wear them. It's a weird thing when you get used to something, and then you just kind of get used to it. And now if I don't have it on, I feel like, oh wait, it doesn't feel right. So that's a dark area, goes around this. When you dip your brush into purple, what Holbein color do you consider a purple? The purple is right here, and this is permanent violet. Use a permanent violet. If you can tell that, that's a permanent violet. And I also have lavender right over here. And though I haven't used any of that yet, this time, which I probably should, because that's my favorite color. So let's put some in right now. And since I do have pink in there, it's not a bad idea to do that with the greens. And notice how I'm just trying to get this all done. I try to go in here and try to work it, and now I have to work this way, and now this is all dry, and so I have to get parts done as I go along. And now I keep getting a reflection. I gotta redo my lighting system here. I just noticed. 1 second. There we go. I put the light too far forward. Alright, so now we're going to wet this area and keep on going. And this has a lot of dark in here too. Now, again, everything has to be darker. Here I did a little sloppiness to this part because when I was over. So yeah, I'm going right over the tape. And now I'm going to start out with the lighter part of the sky here. Just put some of the light blue. I'm using this Vertitor blue, and a little bit of Horizon blue together, and then this is dry already, so I'm going to get kind of a watermark there, but that's okay. We'll deal with that. I think that's okay. When you have a watermark in certain spots, I can make it look like a leaf. This is going to be a darker blossom or bud, darker bud, and then this over here becomes green. Green, blue, orange. Orange and green make a great kind of brownish color, and that you can get in there too. Going in here now and work it wet in the wet. Please work this part wet in the wet. This is what I want you to train to do, be able to do. And a lot of you have started doing it, and you're getting really good at it. And now don't stop doing that. I know a lot of people will tend to do it the one time, and then think, well, he just wants me to do it for that time. I don't need to really learn. But no, you need to learn how to do wet in the wet at all times. Because wet in the wet is every wash that you ever do on paper is wet in the wet. It may be against a hard edge, like when I'm doing a hard edge, but inside the water, you're dipping the pigment into the water, floating your pigment, and that is you do all the time. And so learn how to float your pigment, and it also is a way of controlling. You control your pigment that way, right? You control the edge. You control how the line looks in your work. You can make it look like a bud back here, and it's wet. It's gonna be a soft edge. It'll be out of focus. That's what we want. We want it to look out of focus. We want to see. We don't want to know exactly what this is. We know it is a tree. We know it's branches, and as long as we use the same colors and keep it out of focus, we know what it is. We know that it's the sky. We know it's part of the tree. So that's why I want you to do it out of focus. Otherwise, you have to make it look too tight, and then it's too hard. And then it doesn't give it the depth that you're going to try to get. Because a lot of times photographs give you too much depth, or don't give you enough depth, because it makes everything sharp. And if everything is sharp, then you have no depth except for overlap. And one day, I think maybe next week I should go over Peacock. It's the way of showing dimension. And I just noticed that I have not done that in a couple of years now, talking about Peacock, which is the 5 waves of dimension. And so we're probably going to get into that coming up in the next couple of weeks. That's the next step in showing. You know, you got to show 3D in your work. It's got to look like it's back, front, middle, ground, background. So that looks pretty good there. It's not out of focus, and it's not exactly what you see in the photograph up here. Exactly, that doesn't matter. I never really look at the photograph to copy completely. I just have to make it look like a tree's back there. This is part of the Magnolia tree, and I maybe should have just made more sky up there because now it's almost like too much of this stuff back there. But it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So let's get more blue down here, and I'm wetting as I go along. This is dry. This is wet. But I don't wet the whole thing because, again, by the time I get here, it's going to be dry. So I wet it as I go along. And look at how nice the tape worked. You know, it just gives me a really nice hard edge there. I don't have to put masking fluid on there and hoping that it'll rip. What I'm going to do is use a hairdryer on that and see if that'll do a trick. I'm going to use my round brush here because I'm going to get some of these branches to feel like they're branches. And so I'm going to make it pretty thick. Taking purple, my permanent violet is my purple again, and that with orange makes a brown, kind of a brownish color, and I put a little blue in there too, so just it gets a little bit purpley blue. Oh, I didn't wet it first. Let's wet it first here. Let's wet this whole area. Now it's all wet. It's all soaking wet, and now I can go in and manipulate things. Like, I notice that right in here it starts, there's a little branch that comes down. And then there's a lot of blue. Maybe we should get the bigger parts first, right? The blue parts. Whoa, that's an ugly blue. Speaking of aha moments, you know, when every time I work now in my studio and I have my big towel on around, that was also a great aha moment when I started using a towel. I can't believe how much paper towel I wasted when a towel like this, you know, I get from my Goodwill. I just put it down on my whole tabletop, and everywhere I have I can put it anywhere. I can tap my brush instead of tapping in my hand. I used to have like paper towel, and it's just like so much easier just to tap down here to get rid of the water, keeping the pigment in my brush. And that just happened because one day I didn't have something I wanted to cover up the dark underneath this. My tabletop is kind of dark, and so I just thought, well, I'm gonna get a towel, and it just happened, and I was like, oh man, this is a great idea. I should just use it all the time. And so ever since then, I've been using a towel, and so I have a bunch of them. I just take them after a while, and when they get really dirty, and they don't get them totally white again, but they get pretty good, and they just wash them. I bleach them, hot water, white, and then wash them once in a while. Just get them back to a little bit lighter. Because you can tell this corner right here, I turned this one around because this is normally, this up here, the dirtiness was usually down here. And right here, because I use this right there that you don't see. But I turned it around, the towel, so I'm using it twice, this one. So here now, again, this is the sky shining through. Getting nice blues in here. Look at it, I spattered a little bit so you get little dots in there. That's cool. Nothing wrong with that. Don't mind dots. Picking up blue. Maybe. See, I'm putting the light color down first, you know. And watch when I'm working on a little bit of an angle right now because see, I have this. I actually don't have to work on an angle now because I changed my lighting. But when you work on an angle and it's kind of puddling by the tape, you know, just make sure that it goes beyond. This is also soft tape. And it really repels the watercolor, but it sits there sometimes too, and just so just wipe that out so you don't always have that working or giving you a hard edge or a watermark. So now let's get some of these branches in here, and this is a lot of pigment to create the shape. A little bit of purple and orange that gives me a brown. And I can also add a little bit of, looks like a little dark here, kind of comes down. And I want it not too hard edged, so you don't have to put as much pigment in there or as much water because you don't want it to be hard edged. And I want it to be blurry, and so don't be afraid of water. And even spraying water back on there again later. Because I don't want you to identify to a T what that is. You know it's a branch, you know it's leaves, but I don't want you to be able to see it exactly like what it is, because really it's blurry, and I want you to have it blurry. It looks so much nicer when this is blurry, and it gives you so much more of a background look to it than it does if you have everything in focus. I'm really not liking in focus so many things in focus. I like a lot of blended edges that just bleed away. Now, man, it's really dark, and now I notice over here I don't have any of those darks in there. So when this is dry, I will re-wet it and put some of that in there. But you can't do it, while it's damp, because then you'll make a watermark. So I'm just going to work here a little bit longer. Try to get this a little bit farther along here. Get some more greens in here. Yellow. Maybe tap it like this. Any questions? Tina's late. Hey Tina, you made it though. I'm just happy you guys all made it, so you must read my things then. It's nice to know that you guys actually do read my newsletter. And thanks for all the compliments you guys put out there this week on my Facebook page. It's really, really nice. I mean, I teach because I want you guys to learn, and I really appreciate, that you guys are students, that you come here and they have you somebody to teach. It's no fun not teaching anybody if nobody's online. So thank you so much for coming by and learning. It's so neat to see you guys get so much better. That's why I do it. I love seeing you guys get better. And many of you are just really pushing at the envelope and really doing some great stuff. I'm really proud that you guys are just pushing it like crazy. So this was too many of these lines going this direction. Let's get one going this way. Watch that you don't get too many things going one direction. You want even numbers. You want things going in the same direction. I should put in some pinks in here too, because it would be pink leaves or pink buds, and have fun with washes. That's the best thing about watercolor, is making the washes look cool. Like, what can you do? Maybe you're gonna throw salt in there. I don't know. Put whatever you want into your wash. You want to scrape it? Do you have a cool way of scraping? Do you like cellophane? I've seen a lot of people take cellophane, like paper, and then wad it up and tip it down. Karen asked if I typically paint the background first. Yes, most of the time, because you work light to dark. And though this is my darks I'm putting in now, but I can't do my lightest lights first, and so that would have been my foreground. So this is one time where I would have done the foreground first, and not the background, because it's my lightest light. So you always do the lightest light first, but like in this instance, I couldn't, because I masked out my big flower. And now I'm noticing I just need to get some darker colors in here. I have to follow my value study. I have to follow the value study that you saw before, that everything except for the flower is dark. So this is dark. Even though it's middle tone, to me it's part of the dark of my value study. So I'm going to go in here now and just kind of make things darker. It's dried already, and so I'm just going to go in here and make some of this a little bit darker. It'll create the shape of things in here. I just noticed that I want to get this to be the background. It's going to be soft edged, so I guess I've got to wet it again. But I'm going to keep these front things a little bit lighter. And so I'm just going over with a wet brush. So you can go over a part. Once it's dry, you can go back over, re-wet it, get the hard edge that I needed, but I needed to have this darker so that it pops that area out. And this is the background still. I'm working the background. These right here, though, are darker than that, and so let me just go over that. All right. So what I'm going to have to do now, though, is I'm going to try to take the masking fluid off, or the tape, because I need to get in there and now do the flower, because I still get to get this lights part done. Because this is basically, and again, let's say I didn't get dark enough here. If I wait a little bit and then re-wet it, I can spray it with my spray bottle. And I don't want to do that right now, because otherwise I won't be able to take the tape and we'll be here forever. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the tape now. And this seems a little bit lighter than I would have liked it to be. I liked how dark it was, but it's the background, so it's darker than the flower, so it'll be fine. And then we'll make everything else darker around the flower, and then we'll make the flower really beautiful, colorful. So what I'm going to do to show you how, the reason I used tape again, like I said, I used tape for masking out the flower because that's such a large thing. When it's so large, I don't like using masking fluid because that's a lot of masking fluid. And then it just, for this paper, for Holbein, the Legion paper, the Stonehenge, it kind of is soft and so it rips a lot. And so what I'm going to do is take a X-Acto blade, or actually, I'll just take a razor blade, and I go underneath here, and I'm going to pull it off. And actually see, I like to use my hair dryer. Actually, I use this power stripper, but I put it on low setting. And I put it kind of far away, and I'm just gonna take it off by heating it a little bit. See, it comes off easier when you heat it a little bit, because it releases, the tape releases from the paper. Now this is really hot, so I gotta put it far away. And it's nice and quiet though. By having it hot, it gums up kind of, and so it doesn't pull away the paper as it. See, it just kind of comes right off. Which normally on this paper, it will pull off the paper if you don't do this with the heat. And the masking fluid, I think, works the same way, but this is easier to pull off because it's not as tacky as masking fluid. So I highly recommend, if you are doing large areas, don't use masking fluid. Use this tape. Use the soft tape. It's called soft tape. I'll put it into the description of the video. Now, I'm having a hard time starting it here because I taped it down pretty well. Now, see, it really releases really easily when you use a heater. It just comes right off, doesn't do anything to the paper whatsoever. Sorry this is taking so long, but it's one way. I'm also testing this out because the people from Legion Paper had called me and wanted me to test some other way because they're getting a lot of complaints about people that can't get their masking fluid off and rips their paper. And I can see that's very frustrating when you're putting on masking fluid and it rips the paper off, but this seems like that'd be one way that you can do it. Look at how easy that comes off. Look at how easy. It just peels right off. No paper comes off of it. I'm burning my fingers, but it's fine. I have to take a drink here in a second. It's really hot out. There we go. Look at that, how easy that was. Be careful with it too. Don't go fast, because then it's going to peel it off. But look at that. You can use a hairdryer too, not a power stripper. A hairdryer, I think, is warm enough, and put it close to it. And so look at how nice that is now. Nice and sharp. I used the X-Acto blade. Here it pulled up a little bit because I went a little bit too fast there at the end. But much better than the masking fluid. I've never done this on this paper with masking fluid that big. Or I have to try it. I'm going to be testing their masking fluid. Holbein actually has a masking fluid. This masking fluid, which is, if you don't put it on too thick, then it's fine. And then maybe I'm going to try to release it with the heat too. So I'm going to do a couple tests with it. I didn't want to do it on this one yet, but because for small things, like last week when I did the fish with the little spines on that and on there, they kind of ripped the paper really bad. And I didn't heat it when I took it off, so I didn't try that. All right, so let's do our lights now. First, it's hot. Oh, I gotta get a drink. Wait, that's a really good cider. It's like an orange apple cider. A hard cider, though. Hard cider, so there's alcohol in there. All right, so now let's do our lights, right? And so I'm gonna wet the whole flower and nothing but the flower. So I'm just gonna go in here, wet the whole thing, because I want to get the big areas, and I'm gonna wet it, and I want the soft edges. And if I needed some parts to be white, I'm gonna go up to that. I probably should have done the top part. Oh well, too bad. If I wanted part to be like this part to be really hard edge right there, I should have just wet that part right there, and then when this bottom part wasn't thinking. Oh well. We'll get it close enough. I can go on my second wash. I can do that too. So see, I've just wet the surface, and look at the nice hard edge I got. And isn't that great? And and to get that to paint around, it would have been hard. It's hard to paint around something like that and make it look realistic. And like here, like I go across it, and so you get the same thing on both sides. And now I'm gonna take some violet colors, and like lavender and lilac. And then just give me some shadowing in here of the leaf. I'm keeping white of the paper too. I'm just trying to keep some of the white of the paper. A little bit of purple, a little lavender. And look at it, there's a little edge right here. And I want it to be soft edge, and that's how come I wet it. I wet it, and I'm going to keep some of this white. Learn to keep white of your paper. You don't want to put it in with you don't want to use it watercolor white to make it this bright. And it's a little bit like when it goes down, it gets really dark right here. But I'm gonna do that in my second wash. I don't have to get that dark yet. I can get that later. I'm just gonna try to get the light parts first. Here it should have been a hard edge, right? But because like I said, I went a little bit too far right there. That's okay. What I'll do is I'll just go back in later and get another hit on there to sharpen it a little bit. Soft edges, see how nice and soft they are? It's wet in the wet. Like I said, I would, if I were you, and tomorrow when I'm going, I'll be not wetting this. I'll do the top part, the back leaves first, petals. Then I'll do these front petals afterwards, so I can get a hard edge right here. I can make it pretty hard by using a thick amount of paint. See, I can make it pretty thick, but I can't make it super sharp because, again, it's wet. And it gives me soft edges, which is what you're supposed to do. So give me some pink here. There's some pink going up. And do remember that it's going to dry about at least 20% lighter. So you don't be too scared about it getting too dark. And so look at how nice these soft edges are. This one got a little bit hard edged here, so I'm going to go back over that a little bit. Get a little bit of opera with my purple. That'll give me a really nice pinkish lavender, violety color. And then this, you can also put a little orange into it, a little salmon-y color. That's kind of a fun color to add into there too. Now this leaf, like I said, I would have liked to have that sharp. I can even rub it out too though. I can rub it out later. I can put like the really fine little parts in there too. So now I'm going to wet it. And this is darker. See, this is a darker part, but I don't want this as dark as this. This has to stay lighter than anything in here because this is considered my dark. Even though it's not black, it's not dark. It has to be dark, lighter, because in my value study, this was the lightest part. And that was the only part that was light. And so you can't have this be as dark as this. On the bottom here, you can a little bit, but up here, I want to keep this nice and colorful and light. Colorful and light, that's my center of interest. I need to keep this bright and colorful. That's what my value study says. It's so important to follow your value study. That's why you do it. It shows you what the whole pattern and the whole thing about your painting is going to be. It shows you exactly what your painting will look like at the end. And if it looks good in the value study, it should look, if you do the same thing, it should look just as good in the painting then. So learning to trust your value study and working your value study to a point where you know when you do it in a value study that it's going to look good, then you know for sure it's going to look good in your painting. A little red. Look at that nice red that comes right through there. And I'm using a lot of the colors from my scene this time. Normally I make up the colors, but I really like the colors in this picture. So, if they really look good, then go ahead and copy it. It doesn't, like I said, a lot of times I don't do that. I don't copy the colors at all because I don't like usually the colors that the photograph are showing me. But I like the colors in this photograph. So, hey, use it. This is darker now. See, I'm going to go a little darker. And it's all still wet. So I'm getting these beautiful, beautiful washes, right? Beautiful soft washes, and the detail, like the little stripes in there and stuff you see, you can do that in your second wash. You don't want to go more than 2 though. You want to always try to keep it to 2 washes, 2 steps for a wash. Like you have 3 steps for the whole painting, but 2 steps. I don't like to go into my third wash because then you start getting a little bit too overworked. Because you can't get the nice freshness that you get when you do a 1 wash painting. A little gray in here, and don't be afraid of grays. Grays make your colors come out really nice. And these greens in here with the purples will look great because they're all in there, and they'll look great. They'll make your flowers come pop forward. They'll make everything look really beautiful. I'm using 300-pound paper. 300-pound. I really don't use 140. Only when I'm soaking the paper, and I soak the paper in the back and I put it on something because I don't like I don't like my painting bending. I don't like that at all. So I rarely use 140, and if I do, I wet the back and I slap it onto a plexiglass and... Oh, I see, this is the bud then. This is the bud right here. So yeah, usually 300-pound. I also like the fact that if I mess up, I can use the 300-pound again on the back, where the 140 usually, when you use it, it's really pretty much done. You really can't use the back. It's just so wrinkly. Some violets in here, and these are buds. These are little buds right on the side here. Now those lines and stuff, like I said, you can go to get those later. The hard edge stuff, you can get that later. You don't have to get this right now. I'm getting some of the darker parts. This stem right here will be really dark, and so I can get that in a second. Get some really nice darks in here, nice dark green, nice dark greens in here for the little stems that come up, the little blossoms that come up. They have a little bit of a purpley green. Purple and green make a great gray, and you can shift it towards more of a purple gray, a blue gray. You can put a little blue in there. Orange gray. That's why purple and color really works out well for grays. I just love using lavenders and purple to make my grays. See, nice little dark. I just use purple, green, and blue. Now I don't have a green. I use dark blue and I use quinacridone gold. And then I make orange with it to make it brown. A little purple to make it grayer. I can't wait until Holbein's going to start making, hopefully start making some granular pigments. And I'm really looking forward to, because I really love granulation happening. And they do sell a granulation medium that you can put into your things, but I haven't been able to get that to work for me really well. So I can't wait until they come out with a paint that has the granules like that have a lot of thick granules in it. Making those a little bit lighter here. Make this a little bit darker. A little orange and violet, make it brown. And now this is really dark over here, so don't be afraid of getting your purples in there, getting your darks. And don't be scared of trying to make the background hard-edged or soft-edged and the foreground hard-edged. I really want you to learn that. That's so important for me, to hopefully teaching you to do that. You know, it's so good in your composition of things is to make the foreground hard-edged, make the background soft edge. It automatically gives you dimension. It makes things look really realistic. Because that's how our eyes see, really. Well, our eyes actually see everything in focus, but for a painting, it's nice to have the background like this where it just shoots into the background by itself without having any, no hard edges. Let's get these in here. And if you look close at all these colors I have in here, I have blue, violet, reds, pinks. I'll put a little pink in there. I'll put a little pink in there. Even though it's dark, it doesn't mean you don't have to use color. Use color in it. It's just not one color. Nothing is just one color. It's all these colors are combined into the darks. Even though something is like a certain color, the primary color is like maybe an orange is orange. But if you put an orange in here, like an actual fruit orange in here, it wouldn't just be orange. It would be purple and green and blue. All the colors around it. That's what you got to realize, is that sometimes it's not just the color that the object is, the primary color. Now here we're going to get a little bit of this bud happening here. Take this bud, and then I noticed that back here we have some buds, but I'm going to make these not too contrasty, and but still yet make them, they're hard edged, but they're not too contrasty, so they'll stand back, because I am going to put a branch to that. It's going to be hard as these right here. Any questions? And don't worry if you're behind in some of these paintings. You don't have to do every one. Sometimes just watching, and then later on, maybe doing them later on. You can always go back to them. If you feel like a year later even, then you're thinking, oh, remember we did that one? Go back to it and you can try it again. You don't have to do it right away. Though the more you paint, like I said in the thing, the more you paint, the more you learn. You really have to paint to learn. Watching all my videos are okay, but I want you to do it. I really want you to, you physically have to paint to learn. I've watched a lot of people, and I've always wanted to paint along with them. That's why I do this the way I do, because I always wanted to paint along with people, my teachers, and they never could. And so that's what reason I'm letting you do it, because that's what I wanted to do. I always wanted to kind of go along and watch the teacher and do it at the same time. Well, you can't do it maybe at the same time because I go kind of fast, but you can always stop the video and try it again later. And so that's why I think YouTube videos are just phenomenal, because you can stop it and just follow along. Just do what I do. Usually I'm trying, there's always a lesson usually in my work. I always try to have some type of lesson. It's not that we're just doing a painting to do the painting. There's always a lesson in it. And this one's the background being soft edged and the foreground being tight, hard edged. So that when you do this exercise, that I hopefully expect you to try to do that, because that's the lesson to be learned in this instance. This nice hard edge. Soften that up and put a couple little lines in here. Again, if anybody's in Lake Geneva tomorrow and they want to watch me do acrylic wash demonstration of a city scene, I would be doing a city scene, a European city scene, and it's going to be a little bit bigger, because when I demonstrate live, I usually do them a little bit bigger. It's going to be kind of a little different than watercolor, because I am going to be using watercolor technique first, but then I switch over to more of an acrylic technique to make it thick. I actually go in and get some things thick, and it'll be interesting. Here, I'm going to put some more branches in there. Now this got to see the watermark back there. Let me show you how to get rid of a watermark. Because I have to re-wet this area anyways, because this has to be darker in through here. So watch this. In 1 second. Let me just get this big, get that big trunk of tree trunk there. Let's go in there and get that in there. A little purple, a little red, make it kind of brownish. There's a branch that goes kind of through here that's hard edged. Still lighting. I gotta fix my lighting. That's not good. Don't want you to be seeing reflections. There's another branch that goes this way. They're kind of green. Yeah, I just actually when I went into my studio, my baby foxes, I didn't see them all day. I only saw them on Sunday, and I haven't seen them since. They're hiding. They're very nocturnal. I don't see them very much during the day, but I just saw one as I'm coming out to my studio here in the back of my house. They're actually living under my house this year. I have a little bit of a crawl space, and they found a hole, and so they're actually living in the house. Well, actually underneath the house. And, but good thing that way the raccoons can't get in there because they're going to take care of them. But next year I have to block that off and have them go back to the shed again. They're getting too comfortable with my house. But they're so cute. They're just, the one guy just saw me coming out and he just took off and he looked at me really quickly, gave me his little cute little eyes, and then he took off. So cute little guys. They're very, very cute. Okay, now so let me show you. What I'm going to do is re-wet that area. As you can see, if you look close up, see how there's a watermark? That's a watermark because this part dried before that part did. So how do you get rid of that? Let me show you. And so I want to make this part area a little bit darker, and also that'll pop this bud out a little bit more. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to wet that area. I'll wet my big brush. I was going to maybe do a fox this time, but getting a shot of these fox is almost next to impossible. They run around like crazy. They're just fighting each other or playing with each other the whole time. But see how I'm wetting it? I'm just wetting the area. And if you wet and just brush a little bit, because this paper doesn't soak in as much as like an Arches does, I can really lightly go over it, and it just releases the paint and makes it puddle again like it was the first wash. And so now this is all wet in the wet again. And so now what I have to do is I just have to go in there and put thicker paint there so it will all float again together like it was the first wash. And I have to make it darker, so I'm going to use my smaller brush because I can kind of draw a little bit, and I'm going to make it more green this time. Let's see, a little bit of green. So I'll go in here, get some dark in there. And so I scrub it a little bit. I kind of jiggle it along a little bit so that it gives me, and then I just float pigment back on top of this, and it'll look like a first wash. You will not be able to tell that this is like the second wash and that there was a watermark underneath there. As long as you wet the whole area again, and then float the pigment on top. Remember that float your pigment that I talked about? Floating your pigment. It just floats it on top, and it's doing its own thing. You wet it, you take the pigment, float it on top, make maybe a leaf here and there. You know, it's all soft edge again, right? It's all soft edge still because you wet it. Anytime you work wet in the wet, you're going to get a soft edge. And so there's only two ways of working. One is wet and one's wet on dry. Wet on dry will give you a hard edge like that I just did. That's a hard edge, and along there I kept that dry, but here, see, that's wet, and so that's going to give you a nice soft edge there. And so I'll go a little bit thicker right there. Make my, I'll go back into here too, and actually let's do that right now. Let's put some more pink in there to make that more of a bud. And actually that's dry, so see what happens when I get it dry. But I can do that too, or I can wet it as I'm putting the paint in there. So I'm going to get this little bud right here. Soft and hard edges. I can't believe many teachers don't teach this about learning how to do soft edges because it's hard to do softer edges. It's harder to control your pigment. But to me, it's very important that you learn it. It's so important because once you got it, then you got it. Then you can do it all the time. Because it's not that hard once you learn how to work wet into wet. And once you get that, look at how much more dimension you get. And you can do it 2 or 3 times. It doesn't matter. I could let this dry and go over it again if I need to. It's not like it's not going to look. I don't want to do that, but sometimes you have to because you don't get it the first wash. So you go in the second wash and third wash, but like you have to do it the whole area again. You can't just do a little part of it. You have to make it all wet again and get in there with your brush and get the hard edges that you need and the soft edges that you need. That's another thing. Know what kind of edges you want there. If it's a background, maybe keep it soft. If it's foreground, keep it hard. right, the only thing I think I have left to do is this big petal right here. Look at, I even got a watermark right there because I went back in, right? So let's do that for the last. And I could even put some opaque colors in here, but I don't need to. And even here, it seems like that should be a little bit darker right there. So let's do that. Let me just show you how much time we have left. Oh, 5 minutes. All right, let me get this first, and then we'll hopefully get enough time here. Are they on YouTube? Not the foxes yet. Nope, I don't have them on YouTube yet. Again, I have to film them. I can't seem to. They just come out at a certain time. I may, after this is done, I may go out there because they may be out there because I noticed they were out there before. And they just run around. There's 6 of them, 6 little kits out there. They're just running around like crazy, rocking at each other. And I'm not sure if Mom fed them yet because a lot of times they'll take their food and they'll play with it. So let's go in here again. Get that main. Nice grays in here because I have the color already, but I don't have so much of the grays to make it look really nice. Let's go in here a little bit and soften things, make it a little bit darker as it goes down. So remember, again, with the masking fluid, if you have a big area, I would suggest taping it. If you got a paper like Arches that is really tough, then yeah, okay, it's okay to use masking fluid because you can get, you can probably get that out of there. Oh, where can you watch this one again? It's always going to be here. This painting, this lesson will be here forever and ever. So you just go back to the same address to this video, and it will be on there forever. So you don't have to worry about watching it live. You can watch it later, which I know a lot of you do. A lot of people don't have time on Thursday, and also today I'm sure a couple of people missed it because they didn't realize it was today instead of tomorrow. So, but it'll always be up here. It'll always be on my YouTube channel. So just subscribe to my YouTube channel, and all my stuff is there. And also, if you need to find it, just type in, Magnolia petal, whatever the title is. I try to make it the picture title of the picture, what it is. And so I would just type in, when you're on my channel, just type in Magnolia, and it'll give you this actual painting. And maybe any other ones that I've done that were Magnolia pictures, or paintings, or paint-alongs. I must have about 300 or so up there right now, so there's plenty to do. There's plenty to paint. And I think that's about it. Let me just, my little thing here, let's get this nice and hard. Nice shadow right here. Nice shadow going up. Nice sharp. And you can also take and see there's a little bit of some small little shadow right here. There's a little shadow here on the edge. You can do those. Figure this out a little bit. And that's all detail stuff, which I really don't have to teach you. Just copy the photograph, copy for that. For details, look at the photograph and just try to trace and copy what you see. One more thing up here, and then we're done. All right. Some people would like to maybe do the background as a stencil. You can do that too. Oh, I wanted to make this part darker, didn't I? So what you do is you just wet this. See, I'm just going to wet it. Nothing happens when you just wet it. Really lightly wet it. I'm just going to put a little bit darker right there and be done. I just want to get a little bit darker right here. A little bit of this. Oh, I just went to my light area. See what happens when I'm going too fast? Maybe some hard edge stuff here. There we go. If I have hard edge there, then I got to have a couple of hard edges here too. All right, let's take the table off and we're done. And by that time, wait, 1 minute left. So thanks everybody for stopping by on a Wednesday night instead of a Thursday night. Sorry about that. It was a last minute change. I had to help somebody out. They couldn't, the person that they couldn't show up. And so I'm just stepping in to do their demonstration for them. And so that's come I couldn't do it on Thursday night this week, but you can still watch it tomorrow. All right, I think that's it, guys. This should be darker. I'm gonna make that darker as I sign off. Have to watch later. Where can we watch this again? Okay. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Maura, Patty, Dawn. Thanks for all stopping by, and we will see you next week, unless you're coming up to Lake Geneva tomorrow or at my class on Thursday. I'll see you there. But until then, we'll see you either on Sunday or next Thursday. All right. Cheers, everybody.